What would you say if I would tell you that there is a football association which has the same chairman for 18 years? No, it's not North Korea. It's not some African country where there's the king which is in charge of everything. The country which I'm talking about is in Europe. It's in Eastern Europe. The country is Estonia. Estonian football has been run by the same person, Aivar Pohlak. For the past 18 years. This is definitely a record, at least in Europe. But I have to say, the figure of Aivar Pohlak is very controversial. In June 25, there is the new election for the next 4 years of the person who will be the president, the chairman of Estonian football. Most of the elections ever since Aivar Pohlak was elected were with no candidate, only one candidate. But this year, there is a very solid candidate and the most well-known Estonian footballer in the world, Ragnar Klavan. Ragnar Klavan, which was a central defender from Viljandi, a small town in Estonia. He started his career in Estonia, and then he developed, he went abroad, and finally he also played in leagues like Bundesliga, like Premier League, Liverpool, and Italian Serie A, Cagliari. Now Ragnar Klavan is a retired footballer for 1 year or so, and he has decided to apply to be the chairman of the Estonian Football Association. It is the first time that Aivar Pohlak has such a strong candidate with such a strong background, at least in my opinion. That would be an easy choice. Somebody new, somebody who quit football very recently, somebody who played football to the highest level, somebody who has a very, very good connection all around Europe. So, Ragnar Klavan. What I want to say with this video is, of course, Aivar Pohlak made good and also bad things. I can start with the good things. Aivar Pohlak is the one who brought European Super Cup final in Tallinn, in Estonia. That was an amazing achievement. If you think Estonia is such a small country, 1.3 million people living there, football is not even football is not even a national sport. But in spite of all of that, it was August 2018 when the game Real Madrid versus Atletico Madrid was played, was held in Tallinn. As a person involved with football and as a person living in Estonia, I got no problems to say that was possibly the most amazing days in Estonian football ever. Champions League winners Real Madrid versus Europa League winners Atletico Madrid. The construction of indoor pitches where you could play in the winter. I have arrived in Estonia so many years ago, but Aivar Pohlak was already in charge. And I got to say, I see with my own eyes the transformation. Winter in Estonia means minus 20, minus 25, minus 30. The coldest one I've ever seen was a minus 34. So you can imagine how difficult it could be for professional, semi-professional, amateur, young players to train in the winter. And so when I arrived in Estonia, apart from a very, very few, probably 2 clubs, both from Tallinn, it was impossible to train indoor. So it was normal also for me to train with minus 15, minus 10, snow, ice and everything. Of course, that is not ideal. Of course, the preparation is not good. Of course, especially from the youngsters, it's not good because, of course, a young kid which cannot really practice football from, let's say, from November until March, it's so easy for a young guy to then move maybe to basketball, which is the national sport, and which is a sport which you can do 12 months a year because it's indoor, there are the gyms and everything. But when I arrived to Estonia, there was not such a thing. But now, all around Estonia, there are indoor pitches where you can do your pre-season, where the young players, the young kids can play football whenever they like. Not only in Tallinn, which is the capital, there's several ones have been built, like in Viljandi, in Tartu, in Narva, and also in the small towns. Of course, that is a very good move because it makes football accessible to everyone. But to be honest, I don't see any more good things that he has done over 18 years. So now I'm gonna say the bad things. Of course, when you're talking about football, you need to think about what are the results, the progress, the achievements. As I said before, he has started as a president of Estonian football in 27, and Estonia will finish that year in the 124th position. Of course, as you can see here, there is the record, historically record, 57th in 2011. But I got to say, especially if you guys are not from football, you don't see that from one year to another. It takes even 8, 9, 10 years to see the work he has done, especially from the youth level to the moment when they are actually competing for his national team. Just after 5 years of Aivar Pohlak is not very much because of Aivar Pohlak good intuition of good work, but mostly because of thanks to the people who before him were starting a work to change Estonian football from the basics, from the youth levels, and that was the result. 2011 is the top rankings ever for Estonian football, and as we can see here, there is the drop. Totally drop. As I said, guys, you're gonna see the work of a president around 7, 8, 10 years. And in fact, after 10 years, we see already 9 years in the office, 116, 89, and then from here on, from 2018, 96, goodbye to the top 100 positions until 2025, which is the current ranking, 121st. So basically, in 18 years of being in charge with Estonian football, Aivar Pohlak managed to grow Estonian football in the rankings only by 3 positions. But of course, now I was talking just about football results. Let's talk about everything which was rotating and is still rotating about Aivar Pohlak, which in my opinion are big minus. Private life of course needs to stay private, but when something like that happens it has to be mentioned. His former wife, she accused him to be beaten up, and she also accused him of domestic violence for 20 years of marriage. She's talking about the humiliations and the violence. She says that she remembers that, for example, she was not allowed to laugh because laughing, according to Aivar Pohlak, was a sign of stupidity. But even worse, she was not allowed to see her parents or even her friends. They say that when she had guests, she was forced to stay naked, and sex with Aivar was always violent. She's also saying, I've been beaten for everything. When I told him I loved him, no matter what, he dragged me to the first floor of the house and beat me. I was waiting in fear for him to beat me down. And here there was the defense of Aivar Pohlak, where he did not confirm nor deny the story about his violent nature. But he wanted to state out that Aivar says, first of all, I never even used the word wife because I think it's a dirty word. I've always say mother of my children. She shares my views and tries to help me as much as she can. The result of these accusations ended up with nothing. The claims of Signe Pohlak against her former husband cannot be taken as it was a prescription case. So the story that she said, it's way too old to be able to take him to a court. Then also in 2017, Josimar, which is a football media where they are digging into the football scandals, just talking about Aivar Pohlak, and at the same time he was covering a double position, chairman of Estonian football and also owner and chairman of Flora Tallinn, the most successful club in Estonia. This could be a huge conflict already, which has been solved only in 2016 when he sold the club to his son. Josimar, where they say until 16, he was the owner of Flora Tallinn, as I told you before, and making himself like the real godfather of Estonian football. There are claims against him as he was accused not to pay players. Those who were complaining about that, they could have moved to some smaller clubs, always under his influence. In fact, as I can tell you, there are some smaller clubs where there are sister clubs of Flora Tallinn. Of course, these clubs are much smaller. Of course, the threat for those who were complaining was like, if you don't behave, you move from Flora Tallinn to some smaller clubs in the Premier League, which is the top league of Estonia, or even in the second league. Also mentioning verbal abuse and even threat of physical violence. But not only that, he also wanted to work as a football agent. During the interrogation from the Norwegian police, they were investigating about a fraud, possible fraud, from the tax evasion, and there is this agent that says that everything when it comes to Flora players, I have to confer with Aivar. Not allowed, of course, to act as an agent, but that didn't stop Aivar Pohlak from meddling in potential transfer of Estonian players, also those who were into the Estonian national team circuit. Case of Igor Subbotin. In 2014, he was hired by German club, but the trial was scheduled and the Estonian FA interfered. President Aivar Pohlak wanted to make some money from himself. For this reason, the German club, distanced themselves from Subbotin. That is only one of the many cases, rumors, and everything where Aivar Pohlak, from his position of a president, tried to interfere to get something in his own pockets. Also, he supported Michel Platini from the 27 elections. He eventually won, and Pohlak made sure that all the Eastern Bloc, thanks to his connections, would vote for him. Of course, that itself is not a crime. And in fact, Josimar says that was the seat on FIFA Ethics Committee the payoff for Pohlak. In fact, Platini gets elected and Aivar Pohlak gets the Ethics Committee. Other minus things over Pohlak reign in Estonian football. Time when he was both president of Estonian football and also Flora Tallinn. Flora Tallinn had their own stadium, A Le Coq Arena. He basically sold, as a president of Flora Tallinn, the stadium to the Estonian Football Association. But then he rented out the stadium from the Estonian national team, so the Estonian Football Association, to Flora Tallinn, to a very, very good price. Recently, for the first ever time in Estonian football, Aivar Pohlak, chairman of Estonian football, has been appointed to UEFA top position. This is a very, very strange thing because that happened beginning of March. If Aivar Pohlak will lose the elections, he cannot stay in a board where he's not So because he will be out of Estonian football, so he cannot enter UEFA position if you are outside of your home country football. What is going to happen in June is possibly something that nobody knows, but of course there's all the clubs in Estonia are voting. Every owner is voting, from the top class teams to the smallest one. It's interesting what Ragnar Klavan says. He believes that some clubs don't say in public they are supporting him, of course, because they are afraid of the consequences. Should Ragnar Klavan not win, what could happen to them, knowing the history of Aivar Pohlak? That, of course, is a suspect by Ragnar Klavan. So this is all. Of course, I wanted to show you all the facts. I'm also interested, first of all, if you knew this story, and second, if you were voting, which way would you go? Keep the conservative way, especially now that Estonia has a position in the UEFA top position committee with Aivar Pohlak, or go for innovation, which means Ragnar Klavan? Let me know in the comments down below. Bye.